Okay, so today we are going to go over irony and the different types of irony. The story of an hour is full of irony, and after this presentation, hopefully we'll be able to recognize it easily. Our learning objective is to be able to identify and explain the three types of irony through the use of a variety of pictures and texts. All right, so what is irony? I know that this is a refresher for most, if not all of you. Irony is something that we've been talking about for many years. In the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the definition, which is just a contrast between what is expected and what actually happens. So there are three different types of irony in which something is expected and then something else happens. The first type is what we see a lot of in the story of an hour. It's situational irony. Okay. So something happens that we wouldn't expect to happen. We, as anyone listening, watching. And an example here is a fire station burns down. No one expects a fire station to burn down. Why? Well, we would expect firemen to put a fire out. So the ironic part is that it actually burns down and no one puts the fire out. Okay. The next type is dramatic, and drama is the key word here. And this is when the reader knows something, or if you're watching movies, the watcher, you may say, knows something that the characters do not. This is very dominant in scary movies, thrillers, where we know that there's a killer or a bad guy hiding somewhere, but the actors on the screen have no clue, right? Or when in a story, such as the story of an hour, we know what's going on behind doors, let's say with Mrs. Mallard, but her sister and the friend Richards, they have no idea. So this was where the reader or the audience has more insight than some of the characters. Okay. A teacher example provided here is in Home Alone, the movie. It says, we know that Kevin has planted traps everywhere, but the thieves don't. Okay, so the thieves would not expect a kid to have, outsmarted them. So the fact that when they get in there, there's traps planted everywhere, that is irony. The last type is verbal irony, and we come across this a lot in everyday life and maybe just don't recognize what it is. So this is when something is said is different than what is meant. Okay. And it can be something as simple as when someone is in a play, maybe you say, hey, go break a leg, but you really mean good luck. That's a very, I would say, weak form of verbal irony, but a lot of times verbal irony is seen as sarcasm as well. You tell someone, oh, that outfit looks great, but it is obvious because let's just say they're wearing a clown outfit that it's not meant to look great, that it's meant to be funny. All right, so we're going to look at some examples. And it says to identify the following examples of irony as situational, dramatic, or verbal. So we'll read through them. I'll give you a few minutes to kind of in your head gather what you think it is, and then you'll see if you're correct. So for this slide, it says George breaks a date with his girlfriend so he can go to a ball game with the guys. At the concession stand, he runs into the girlfriend with another guy. And you can see the pictures there. So we're looking at what is the difference here between what we expect to happen and what actually happens. So George obviously does not expect to run in to his girlfriend with another guy at the ball game. Okay. And maybe the girlfriend didn't expect that he broke his date to go to a ball game. So there's a couple different things going on there. So think for a moment, do you think, I always ask myself, what can I eliminate first? And so I would say, well, I can eliminate verbal irony because there's nothing being said. So now we're down to situational irony in or dramatic irony, and something that the reader or the audience knows something that the characters don't. And so I would ask you, did we know ahead of time something that one of the characters didn't? So think about this. Is it situational? Is it dramatic? Or is it verbal? All right. So probably most of you were correct in saying situational irony. There was nothing that we knew ahead of time that the characters didn't know. There were no words being exchanged. So that really only left situational irony because we didn't expect to see, or George didn't expect to see his girlfriend with another guy. Let's try again. Slide number 2. So there are no words here, but let's look at this picture. What's going on? You've got a 24-hour fitness center. You've got stairs in the middle of escalators, and you've got people going into the fitness center to work out who are riding an escalator instead of taking the stairs. So again, I ask, what can I eliminate? Can definitely eliminate what? Verbal irony, right? There's nothing being said. So then you're down to, again, what's the next thing I can eliminate? So I have to think, well, in dramatic irony, we know something characters don't. And then in situational irony, it's just something different than you expect. So make your guess. And again, it's situational irony. We don't expect a fitness center to have an escalator because they expect you to burn less calories. All right, so next slide. You're watching a horror movie. You know that the bad guy is waiting for the main character in the closet, but the character doesn't know and unknowingly opens the closet door. So again, if you think you know it, that's great. But if you need to eliminate things, I always start with the easiest to me, which is verbal irony. Nothing's being said. Dramatic irony. Do we know something that the character does not? And then situational irony. Is it something different than we expect in a horror movie? So make your guess. All right. And the answer this time is dramatic irony. So the audience, we knew something the main character different. And in a horror movie, it's not something different than we expect. We expect those type of things to happen, right? So dramatic irony, we knew something character didn't. Okay, here's again. We walk outside into the pouring rain. Your friend sarcastically comments, "What lovely weather we're having today." So there's really only one type of irony. Take a minute and, oops, if you said verbal, you are correct, right? It obviously is not lovely weather. That is not what she meant, or he. It's a very dreary day and the person was just being sarcastic. Next slide. You've got a guy standing here, go USA. They're obviously protesting something. It says, "Get a brain, morons." I think the sign was meant to say morons. Now, just as in the case before, this guy isn't actually talking, but he wrote down what he meant. So then are you wondering, is this verbal irony or is this situational irony, something different than we expect? So make your best guess. And it is situational irony. He didn't actually say anything, but he's calling protesters stupid, but then he misspelled the word moron. So that's why it's situational irony. We wouldn't expect that to happen. Here we go. A police station gets robbed. This is similar to the fire station incident. Make your best guess, situational, dramatic, or verbal. And again, situational irony. You wouldn't expect the police station to get robbed. We, it could not be dramatic because we didn't know ahead of time as a reader and there were no words exchanged, so it could not be verbal. Let's look at slide number 7. I'm going to be quiet and I'm going to let you observe. Okay, so is a situational irony, and you're looking at the two billboards right next to each other and what they say, dramatic or verbal. And it is situational irony. Why? It's ironic that a McDonald's sign is right beside a sign of obesity because we know that McDonald's doesn't serve as many low-calorie foods as they do fried foods and foods very high in calories, which can, of course, lead to obesity. All right, here we go. When watching a talk show, the audience knows why a person has been brought on the show. However, the person in the chair does not know that they are going to be reunited with a long lost friend. So take a minute and decide, is this situational? Is this dramatic or verbal irony? And if you said dramatic, you are correct. Why? Because the audience or the reader knows information a character does not. We know why they've been brought on. They don't, so it's drama. It's going to cause some kind of dramatic, what am I trying to say? Some kind, yeah, result in the character, right? And that's it for irony. If you're still confused about irony, you can go to YouTube. There are a lot of different videos explaining irony. You can always get in touch with me and I'll help you throughout this. But hopefully, this will help you to detect what's ironic in the story of an hour, meaning what happens that's different than we expect to happen, which would be situational. Things happen that the character does not know about, which would be dramatic, or things that are said that are not what are meant. Okay. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.